Thank you. Good afternoon. I think I'm bucking the trend here in a couple of ways. You know, you've been having people sitting very comfortably, having nice conversations, and I'm an old school agency guy. I like to stand and get the center of attention and be on stage on my own. And bucking the trend in the sense that obviously, as you can see, I am ridiculously tall. So you're now probably having to crane your necks by me being on stage and making myself even taller. But hey-ho, that's where it goes. Next 20 minutes, I want to just talk to you a little bit about this thing that we call Seikatsusha, which I'll explain a bit more in a moment, which I think is important for everybody, and the importance of staying human, even though we've spent vast parts of the last few days talking about the power of AI and data and how the future can, be a different place to today. And the key point is, without sounding like a Luddite, I think that ultimately we have to still be human. But let me start by introducing myself and ourselves. So we are H+. This is the international client division of an agency called Hakuhodo, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. And this is the business we're in, right? We connect, all of us in this room, we're in the business of connecting people with things that they love. And if we do that well, then that's a success. If we don't do it well, then by definition, we failed. And this concept that I've talked about a couple of times, Seikatsusha. What is Seikatsusha? Seikatsusha literally translates as life-living humans. This is a word that was actually invented by Hakuhodo, but has now actually entered the Japanese language vernacular and is used every day. And it's interesting because we spend a lot of time as agencies, marketers, talking about consumers. And I'm here to say that actually, weirdly enough, I don't believe in consumers. I don't believe there is such a thing as a consumer. Those of you who've got children, or even don't have children, but interact with kids, when you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Hopefully they'll say they want to be, soccer players, policemen, lawyers, the president, whatever that means these days. No one will say, I want to grow up to be a consumer. I want to grow up to be a shopper. It's this phrase that we've invented, and I think it can be quite monosyllabic because of that. So Seikatsusha is about understanding, and we should all seek to understand the 360 of humans. What makes them laugh? What makes them cry? What fears do they have? What dreams do they have? And if we can tap into all of these things, then hopefully we've got a chance of actually having a conversation with them, engaging with them. Because we do live in a world that is awash with data, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's awash with AI potential, which is a wonderful thing. But at the end of the day, it's still us. It's still people who sit at the heart of that. And again, I'm not saying that we ignore it, but sometimes we forget just what an important role that still has and how important those conversations are if you're going to engage. Because we are living in a world where you battle for attention every single day. I was having a very lovely chat over lunch with Tina Hausman, our F1 Academy driver. And she was saying, as an 18-year-old, she was saying, I don't understand why people are glued to their phones all the time. Why don't people talk to each other anymore? This is an 18-year-old saying this. She's already despairing at the fact that people don't give enough attention to each other. But in that context, attention is also a challenge because people are bombarded every day with so many things, so many distractions. At any given time, I think someone said yesterday, we have, or even earlier today, that we're bombarded with maybe 5,000 messages, obvious or subliminal, every single day. How many of those actually register? An interesting study that was done by a company called Amplified Intelligence a couple of years ago established that in order for us as human beings, of really any age, but certainly the older you get, and I'm a living proof of that, you need more time. To form any kind of memory, you need to be exposed to something for at least 2.5 seconds. You think about all of the so-called communications messages that you see on your phone as you're scrolling every single day, or on YouTube, and how many of those get even half of that 2.5 seconds. So how do you form those memories? How do you create that connection? Certainly what we call traditional advertising, I don't think cuts it anymore, because they don't get that time. 9 out of 10 ads don't get that 2.5 seconds that you need to form a memory of it. Being generic doesn't work. We know this. Data might tell us, go to this particular space, lots of people are there. But if you're there with a very generic message, nobody cares. The fact is that some things remain true, which is it's about the power of the message, the strength of the creative. But ultimately, we have to balance all of these things in a way which is directly appealing to Seikatsusha. So how do we do that? How do we understand them better is critical. Likewise with audiences. I see some friends in the audience here who are in this specific space of helping us to create better audiences, create stronger audiences. Fantastic. Once you've created that audience, how do you curate towards it? How do you create the right kind of conversation with them? Because ultimately, we do have so much data, but so little time. This is something that we all know. It used to be cash-rich, time-poor. Now we talk about data-rich and time-poor. And the most important part of that, and why I really urge you, no matter who you are and who you work for, to think about your consumers as Seikatsusha, is because if you do it in the correct way, you hopefully get a chance of actually forming what I would like to call a heads-up display that can potentially anticipate what Seikatsusha wants, needs, where they're going, as opposed to what we still rely on a lot, which is traditional data that, whilst it's absolutely solid, gives us a rear-view mirror display. This is what happened yesterday. This is what happened because. Well, what about what might be coming? And in this world of AI and machine learning, yes, it is helping us to reach people more efficiently. But is it helping us to understand why anybody wants us to talk to them? Is it helping us to really grab that attention? Because AI and data absolutely scales signals. We know that to be true. But we still have to remember that it's human intelligence that creates significance, that scales significance. And that's why I think looking at consumers as Seikatsusha is critical. That's why the human in the loop is critical. In the world of AI, we do a lot of talk around the fact that we should try and keep the human in the loop. But how do we do that? Are the old methodologies now completely defunct? I don't think so, because we think that the ideal combination, and I don't think anyone will disagree, has to be where intelligence comes in is where we have that deep human understanding. We are able to move at the speed of culture. We are able to take that data, but connect it faster and faster and as seamlessly as possible, and understand that each new data point, each new connection needs to be then uniquely analyzed and can't be cookie cutter. And I think there's a danger in allowing AI to really drive us down a single path. And my wish and hope for all of us is that we look around, and sometimes maybe as Robert Frost told us, take the road less traveled. Because when we do combine, and in our case, when we combine, Seikatsusha data with that human intelligence and analyze it in a way which is bespoke, we do think we can keep the humans at the center. And it really begins, as I say, with some quite traditional, tried and tested methods. The way that we do it is we have a thing called Hakuhodo Institutes of Life and Learning, which is quite unique. It's a rare thing where you have something in an agency that doesn't actually work for clients, and clients can't actually pay them to do something bespoke. They are here to be the voice of Seikatsusha. They're here to actually, on a consistent and ongoing ethnographic basis, talk to people, understand people. And I think that's something that, again, we don't do enough of these days. Look people in the eye, have that conversation, understand them. But then, of course, that's combined with an AI understanding of Seikatsusha. In our case, the way that it's done is we've developed multi-personality AI agents. So at any given time, whether we're in Indonesia or the Philippines or Japan or wherever we happen to be, we can actually have at our disposal a database of real people that we can talk to, interact with, learn from, to be able to actually, again, begin to give us that heads-up display of where we might be going. And it's really important, I think, that we do remember both these aspects of conversational-led ethnographic research married to an understanding of AI signals, because it does a lot more than just tell us who these people are. It helps us to begin to curate what that audience might be looking for, helps us take that deep dive into that target audience, into who they are, into what makes them tick. It guides innovation. Innovation with humans at the heart should be something that we're constantly looking to explore, to improve upon, to grow. And taking this combined approach of conversation, data, AI, allows us to drive a lot of that innovation for what then becomes tomorrow's new conversation. It anchors us in culture. I talked about the speed of culture earlier on. Speed of culture is important, but having that innate understanding of what is the zeitgeist? What is the zeitgeist in any particular market? Why would people care? How? Even what tone of voice should I be using to talk to these people? That is something that is mission critical, as we all know. How do we deliver that on an ongoing basis? That's a real strength of being able to think of Seikatsusha through that AI lens. And finally, in terms of the actual consumer journey. The consumer journey, is something that, again, there are lots of traditional marketing routes towards achieving that consumer journey success. But ultimately, that consumer journey is constantly evolving. Every single day it's changing, every single day it evolves and it moves on. We have to make sure that we're always on the front foot when it comes to understanding that. I'm going to tell you a little story now for the next 3 or 5 minutes on how I believe all of this should come together. And I'm going to use an example of a good friend of mine. She's called Amira. She is 25 years old. She's a digital creator here in Singapore. And Amira and I became very good friends last year when we were developing some work on behalf of the clients. And Amira was a combination of our understanding of Singapore as a society, the learnings that we've acquired over the last 20, 30 years on what being Singaporean means, together with our understanding of what it is that makes young Singaporeans tick. And we took all of these data points and fed them through the AI Seikatsusha system. And Amira became a very good friend because Amira then became one of my key sounding boards in the work that we were doing. Amira helped us to understand and evaluate what might work, what might not work. She was actually quite brutal in some cases when we showed her certain things that we thought would be engaging messages with her age group. And she could be quite brutal in saying, yeah, no, move on, pass, not interested. She could also be quite enlightening in terms of some of the insights that she gave us in return. And that helped not only in the development of the work, but again, in the continuous fine-tuning and the continuous evolution of that work. She helped us to actually redefine our thoughts and our organizing principles. She actually got to the point where she would be asking us questions. Why are you showing me this? Why not that? Why are we having this conversation? And it was enlightening in many ways because this was, again, the voice of that generation. It spoke for the zeitgeist of Singapore. She helped me to expand the ideas that we were, at one point, in danger of being a little bit too straitjacketed by. She actually suggested different ways of approaching a challenge, right down to the fact of, yeah, this looks great, but you're only selling it in this place or that place. And I don't have access to those things for these reasons. And so actually, even when it comes down to the distribution food chain, she was helping us to understand and better dissect how we go to market. And as a result, that's why she became a very good friend and my sounding board. And why am I telling you this story? This is not advertising for you should all come and talk to me. This is about the fact that this would not have been possible if we didn't constantly keep that human at the core, constantly keep reminding ourselves that at the end of the day, every conversation is a human conversation, and ensuring that we put the apparatus in place to allow that human-centric view to really be a part of our overall data story. So just as a final wrap-up, we believe in Seikatsusha. We believe in having human at the heart of everything that we do. AI is never going away. It will only become stronger, it will only become faster, only become more efficient. But without sounding like I'm fear-mongering, as I said at the beginning, it's still about conversation. It's still about connection. And I really believe that we, in this room, we're not going away anytime soon either. We're going to keep evolving. We're going to keep changing. And being able to remind ourselves that ultimately we can still be in charge of our decision-making, that we can still be the people who are fueling the movements in our society, fueling growth, fueling the future for our children as well. That is something which I just want to remind ourselves of, because I think sometimes it can get lost in all of the talk of the future and the talk of what's to come. So thank you for your time. That was my little shout out for human beings. And if you want to talk any more about Seikatsusha, please find me, let me know. But thank you very much for your time.